Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday morning VFX live stream. Let's go ahead and just center that camera a little bit. You're probably going to hear an echo just for a slight second because obviously I just want to make sure that the audio settings are good here and that you guys can hear me. This is only like always the tech check at the beginning of the stream to make sure that I'm not muted. And that looks like that works right there. Hey, yo, welcome in, Matthias. Welcome into the live stream chat. Today, we're going to be doing a fun little dogfight shot that you guys can find on the Action VFX website. It's practice footage. And today, we're just going to go ahead and jump right on in. I think there's quite a bit of stuff to do today. I'm probably going to guess that this might be a part 1, part 2. We'll see. We'll play it by ear, of course. But this is the shot right here. I'll just play it back right here. A lot of people have been doing this dogfight shot and they've been doing the blaster shot. I thought it'd be kind of fun to add in like a ship maybe flying in overhead. Maybe we see the very bottom of it. I don't know that we're going to see anything. Too much, but I figured adding in some explosions and things like that. I was going to try to add in, so on the Cattery, there's this really cool, I'll just show you guys real quick. Someone released this GitHub thing. It allows you to feed it 2D footage, and on the Nuke, it'll output normals based off of the imagery that you're feeding it. So that way you can create kind of like 3D topology from the 2D imagery. And I haven't gotten this all completely set up yet, but I'll go ahead and post this link over here in our Discord. If you guys aren't part of our Discord, then make sure to join it. Link is in the description. You guys can see that by scrolling down. We've got a whole community on our Discord that you guys can be a part of. But I'll go ahead and share this GitHub link in there, and if you guys want to mess around with it, then feel free to grab it. I'll put it in the work in progress stuff on the Discord. But it's a fun kind of like normals like workflow. Oh yeah, we were talking about this normals at work the other day. Yes, I saw it on LinkedIn first, and then I moved more into it. I saw some people's tests on it, and it looked really freaking cool. I just haven't gotten a chance to mess around with it too much yet. I tried installing it late last night, but I was in the middle of doing like a freelance job and then also kind of like prepping for this live stream this morning. So I was just like, I can't focus on this right now, but I want to come back to it. I basically have it downloaded. I think the only part that I'm not getting correct right now is the torch script file. I need to figure out exactly where to get that, and I guess I have to compile it or something. I don't know. We'll get to that later. But anyways, for today's stream, we're gonna go ahead and be doing this dogfight shot right here, and as I said, we'll probably be doing some keying. The cool part is that the background here pretty much is pretty straight lines. Like, we don't have to do too much crazy keying on this shot. I inadvertently gave myself a very easy green screen shot to do, which is something that you never get inside of the world of visual effects. But here we are with a nice easy key to do, although I'll be biting my words later on that. But a couple things that we might want to do is add in some kind of like frosted effect to the window here, and then of course we'll be adding in the space in the background and all of that stuff. In the thumbnail, I even threw up the Droideka no, it's not Droideka, it's the Trade Federation blockade space station, but I don't know if we're going to add anything like that into the shot. But she will be flying away from something, or some kind of way of being able to see speed of her flying through space. So without a further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on into this. If you guys want to grab all of this footage and practice assets and all that stuff, go ahead and go to the video down here. You'll notice that there is this wish list here, and if you click on the wish list, it'll take you to the page with all of the assets that I'll be using today, some of which are paid, but the actual practice footage itself is free. So you guys can go ahead and grab the practice footage, and then if you do want to purchase any of these assets after you clicked on my wish list link, I'll get a little kickback from that. So that's always a nice way to help support the channel, is that you guys get some assets out of it and I get a little bit of compensation. But without a further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on into this. I think the first thing we're going to want to do is just create like a nice key on this. As I was saying, we probably could get away with just even doing a roto and then tracking that roto into the shot, because the background does move slightly and jitter slightly, but it doesn't go too crazy. And so honestly, we could probably just do it that way. But I figured, why not just do a key first, and then we'll move from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and disable it, and then we'll find a nice spot for this key to exist. I'm thinking probably somewhere around here, that the average of this green here would probably be ideal for us. And let's go ahead and undisable that, and then we can kind of see what we're working with here. Honestly, keying is one of those things that I always kind of just like stumble my way through, you know. I think that it's something that I'm certainly not a pro at yet, but what I like to do is sometimes just go to the alpha of your channel here, and then what we'll try to do is we'll try to isolate specifically as a mask the areas in which we want to do this. I like to do this by changing the screen gain slightly, and that's going to unfortunately also kind of like delete some of our pixels here, as our change I like it burns the pixels basically. So really trying to find like that happy medium of what we're going for here. I'm going to also bring down the white, just so that way we're probably going to also use some rotos here honestly as well. And we'll do that in a moment, but for right now I just want to mostly get this key specifically of this section here. And the reason why is because if I play back this footage, you'll notice that her hand just slightly moves over in that specific section. So that's what we're really trying to bring back in. We don't really care about any of this up here. We're going to roto all of that out in our cleanup layer. Keying is the quick bit. Good keying is a bit that takes forever. Exactly. And that's going to be one of those things that we're probably going to have to need to adjust on this as we're going forward. But for right now, we're just going to get a nice, pretty quick key just for the main areas. And then we'll come back later and then do the rest of it. So ideally, what we're trying to do here is I'm going to make sure that our color isn't being adjusted. As you can see on our C, it has quite a bit of green in it. And so that is one of those things that we're going to need to avoid. So here's the thing. We're going to start to organize some of our nodes here. An easy, by the way, when you're doing keying, I didn't do this, but I really should, just for proper workflow here. We should denoise first. I was going to do this in a second, but I might as well do it right now. So let's go ahead and denoise kind of like this gray out section here. It's nice because we could see quite a bit of noise in this particular area of the cockpit. I don't know how well that's coming through on the live stream, but we're going to do that section there, and I'm just going to denoise it all the way. I know there's better denoise options like DOS grain inside of Nukepedia and stuff like that, but some of the ways I like to do is just degraining it first, and then from here we can add grain in at the end of our stack. So let's go ahead and I'll do that real quick. If we add in a grain node here, I'm just going to go ahead and go view that. And then I'm not going to apply only through alpha. This is where the fun begins. Yeah, exactly. This is pod racing. I'm going to go ahead and view our original grain that we have here. And if I find a spot that is really easy to see the grain at, it's funny just because like they shot this pretty clean. There we go. You can kind of see that there. So we're going to match in that particular area. And so we can see the grain on one side, but then our clean plate on the other side. And now we have to match this side to this side. It does make it a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to try to make this as like contrasty as possible, so that way we can really see what kind of grain we're working with here. If you boost up the levels, you'll be able to see that a little bit nicer. But you can see all of this grain that's on this side of the image here, that when we denoised it, it got rid of that grain. And so we have to add that grain back in. So if we just go to like the red channel, for instance, you can see exactly all the grain that's missing specifically on the red channel. Did I catch the Phantom Menace re-release? I did. Was wild seeing those on the big screen again. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it when it first came out. So I did watch that this last weekend. And my mind was blown. No, my mind's not blown. But because it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I'm not as critical as, other people are. But mostly because I just love Star Wars. I love Star Wars to the extent that I hated the new Star Wars. Does that count? Okay, so what if we do here now is that if I add this grain in, what we need to do is match this grain to this grain side. And I like to go to each channel individually and adjust things individually there. So if I just change the red channel, for instance, I can change the sizing of the red channel. And we're just going to try to get the size to be about the same as the grain on this side. And then secondly, we're going to try to get the size or the intensity of the grain to match as well. And that can be done through right here. Sometimes if you need to, you can adjust the black levels of the red here. I don't think we're going to need to on this specific image here, but what we're going to try to do now is mostly just try to match this to this over here. And also adjusting the irregularity sometimes can help. I'll probably change the size here briefly. Something like that. And this is one of those things that's just, it's a pain, but you got to do it. So matching the grain is one of those things that you get a little bit better at the more you do it, but it's always going to be a bit of an annoyance. I think my size is still off here. Oh no, not the intensity. That's pretty good. And now we'll move on to the green channel. And luckily, should be pretty similar. So we'll just go ahead and adjust a lot of these settings to match. And then back to the blue channel, which is what a lot of VFX supervisors would say is the most important channel to match. Because blue tends to be where you're going to get the most amount of your grain. So if you can match this channel, then a lot of your other work is going to kind of just line up. So there you go. So now we have our grain that we just added in there. And I think that will do us nicely. I think our size is still off. Let's adjust that real quick. I think our intensity is a bit much here as well. And then green, we'll change the scaling on that one as well. And oftentimes this can be very useful to, if they filmed like a gray card of some kind, then that's always very useful to just grab the grain from there. And then finally the blue channel, let's just lock in the blue here. Okay. Now if we close that off, just see that's going to be our grain that we're adding back in. And that should look pretty close to what we had before. Now let's take this grain and we're going to move this all the way to the bottom of our whole node graph. We'll be using that later, but for right now we have that denoised now. And if we go in and do some of our work here, I'm actually going to see if we can get away without doing a key light for right now. For our purposes, we'll use the key light probably for this particular section of the image. But for right now, let's try to do this. Let's go to the beginning of our frame here, and then we're going to add in a tracker. And then this tracker node will track probably the intersecting point here. There's not really any tracking markers for us to track on this whole thing. But potentially we could track this corner here. If we find that, let's see, let's just turn off all of our settings here. That's totally fine. I think try to find something that's contrasty enough. And sometimes that could be a bit of a challenge, but let's see. Trying to create contrast by adding in a color correction node, and then let's just try to boost the contrast as much as possible. You could do this before you do a tracker, so that way you have like very jaggedy edges or something like that. Yeah, and then we're gonna just take this point here because now we have like this very defined area. So let's go ahead and close that real quick, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in a tracker, and we'll just do it to this kind of like corner section here, and then I'll boost the range in which it's looking at it. I'll set the frame to 1000 for our reference frame, and then let's go ahead and track forward. Oh, that's not tracking actually, but good thing I did play it back. I didn't notice that this goes in front of it. So maybe we don't want to do that specific area. Maybe we want to do that specific area. So let's go back to a frame 1000. Well, frame 1 shouldn't be anything, so let's go ahead and delete that. Add a new tracker in. Track this specific section here. And then we'll turn up the visibility. And of course, we can track forward. Now instead of hitting the play button down here, let's actually hit the tracker button up here. And it looks like it blew off. So we'll have to fix that. Where did it blow off the... Oh, is it because the luminance change? That's fine. We'll fix that. Let's turn off the color corrector here, and then we'll just move this up to, like, I don't know, that section. Let's see how well this can track. No, we're gonna run into some problems. All good. We'll figure it out. I need to find some kind of, like, contrasty area that the joystick isn't jumping in front of. Can you explain more about what that does? I don't mind flying, but what are you doing? Wait, what? Oh, you're quoting something. Can you explain more what I'm doing here? I basically am creating a tracker node, and then I'm tracking the background here. And then the idea will be, now that our track isn't good, and I can see that it's not because of this luminance adjustment that's happening here. But let's see. Let's try this real quick. So with our tracker node, I'm placing it on the corner here. And then in our tracker settings that we have, the reason why it's moving like it just did was because of the luminance adjustment back here. You can adjust for luminance changes here by going into the settings of your tracker node and then going back into our tracker and then deleting forward. And then we'll go ahead and track our shot again. Let's see if we can get more of a lockdown shot. And it's still jittering up and down, so that's not going to be a clean enough result for us. But what we can see that's going on, the reason why I'm tracking this at all is because the pod is moving. and I need that pod to not move. Yes, it will be locking the screen. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to stabilize the shot, and then we can reapply the motion after we do the composite, or we could track our roto onto the shot, basically. Because there's a couple ways we could do this. We could either roto everything out, which is going to be a lot easier, especially since nothing's necessarily passing in front of the background. All we have to do is go in here and then just add in our roto nodes, or our roto points. We will have to do a green screen kind of like color suppression. But I'm just going to go through here, and then we'll just create ourselves a nice clean roto. Kind of what I'm thinking is if we take this entire thing and then move it down. Yeah, let's do it that way. Okay, so then we're basically going to say, hey, let's keep everything on the inside of this rotoed section here. So say pre-multiply RGBA, okay? Now, let's move that tracker away and then add in a merge node. I'll just show you what this does real quick. If we move that merger node down, I need this roto right here. We'll set this to a mask. And now we have kind of like this alpha'd out section of our imagery. Auto alpha that. Fantastic. So now it kind of like cuts out all of the green screen work that we did. And then of course, if we add in a key light, so we're going to do this, but this is going to be for the placing that back on top of our work. I'm doing this everything a little bit backwards here. I apologize, guys. But basically what we'll be doing is we'll be taking this and putting this on top of our image, and then we're going to be keying out the background first. So let's go in here. We'll add in our key. Again, we'll do specifically this area here. Whoops, sorry. Disable that, and then we won't run into any problems. But we're going to kind of like average out the green pixels that we have here by selecting that. And that's going to place that color key inside of our key light. So now if we key out everything in the background, we don't have to worry as much about the interior here of her or the jacket or any of that stuff, because all we're worrying about now is the edges around the outside, because we already have everything covered with our roto. We're just basically trying to get the pixels between this red line here and then the outer line of the space cruiser. So that should be fine. Let's go ahead and adjust some of our settings here for our key light. If we go into our screen mask now, let's go ahead and key out as much as we possibly can here, just trying to create a clean edge, removing as much as possible, and then of course bringing back in and creating like a harder line. Again, I'm just trying to create this hard line on the outside of the space cruiser here. If we play this back, we'll even see the hand kind of pop in this section here. Yep, there we go. Now we have these dots up here. That's happening from the reflection up above. So I'm not too worried about that right now. And as I said, I'm not worried about anything on the inside here. Maybe we should be worried a little bit about the hair here, but that's something that we can fix with a nice clean roto. So yeah, now we have this key light, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this in conjunction with our main roto. So if we can see what would happen if we do this. If I just add in a merge node and then we merge on top of it our regular footage, what we get is a cleaner version of everything on the inside here, because we were removing all of those pixels earlier from that green screen. Now we're not going to be removing it. We're actually going to be placing it on top. So we have just our rotoed pieces, and then we place on top of that. We'll do the same thing with the head, because as that head moves out, we're going to actually get some weird artifacting that's happening as well. Have a Baby Yoda outside? No. Baby Yoda got enough screen time. Just lurking today, excited to see what the finished product is. Me too, man. But yeah, so the other thing we're going to have to worry about is the reflections that are up here. So let's go ahead and start to work on some of that stuff. So we have our key light, and that's actually where some of our issues are coming in, is after the key light. We can actually fix some of these edges by just doing like a nice little edge blur. Lucky for us, we don't actually need this edge to be perfect because there's no detail here that we're really missing. But we do need to fix the headpiece here. So let's go ahead and do that. We could do that through the roto node as we're working on this. So I'm going to go back out of alpha here, and then we're going to just select the head. Luckily, this head never really leaves the area of the spaceship, so we just have to kind of select that area. And if we go back here, what we'll see is by enabling and disabling this, actually fixes the hair. And all we have to do is just follow that head a little bit. Just add in some keyframes here. It's nothing too crazy. You saw you filmed a... Oh, yeah. Sorry. You guys are chatting with each other. Literally doing my own After Effects work while watching Connor. Awesome, man. Thanks. And then, of course, her hair goes off a little bit here, so we're going to want to clean that up. So let's change the the feathering here on the edge of this. And I'm going to just adjust some of our other keyframes. We'll just monitor this pretty closely. We could also track our heads, that way we don't have to do too much of this, but we're just going to go every other frame or so here and probably not have any issues. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that now, and then let's just watch to see what we had done, see if there's any issues. Not seeing anything. After Effects Horror VFX. Let's go. Okay, and then now, of course, we're going to see some of the lines that are being created from our roto. If we just add in a blur node after this, that might help solve some of our issues. And that's going to help feather between the roto version and the non-roto version. Now, it's important to note that the keying is actually changing some of the color values that we have inside of our key. And we'll need to bring back in that green element that we are kind of removing from all of our shadows, because it's starting to remove a lot of the green key that we have. And this may or may not be desirable, because what it's doing is we have this green screen back here, and we're saying, hey, remove this chroma key in the background. But what it's also doing is removing green from literally everything. So if we have any spill anywhere else, it actually removes that green as well. We could just despill everything from green screen, because green is pretty much never desirable. And a few ways we could do that is by going up here to the main image, just so we can see what we're doing here. And we're going to use like a hue correct. Sorry, not hue shift. A hue correct. And then if we select green SUP, all we have to do is just find like this area in which the green is happening. And if we just grab this green, what we're going to do is we're going to basically make the green grayscale inside of our image. And it's not going to really adjust too much of the rest of the image, but it will remove all of that despill that we have in the rest of the image. pretty nicely. We can even just select some more of the fade off here just to kind of clean that up. And so that's going to remove kind of the green despill. Now I'm going to take that out of the chain because we obviously need the green in order for the key light to do its job. But another thing that we can do is, instead of using the key light directly, some trick that I like to do is just adding in a merge node. We can plug this into the key light here. And so then now what we're going to do is we're actually keeping all of the green on the inside here rather than keying it out. So we're keeping the same mask that we created before, but this time we're actually just keeping it as with the green despill option that we have. So now if I plug this directly into here, the other thing I like to do is then take this to our hue correct, and let's just plug this in down there. This is getting a little messy, but there you go. So now we have our hue correct, our key light, and then let's move all of this down here. So now this is going to be using the despilled version of the image. So we're still despilling it, but we're doing it on our own terms. And we're using that same exact despill for the rotoed out version of the image that we will be comping it on top of it. So now we're not going to have any lines. So if I remove this blur here, we're not going to have any lines between those two different versions. And we can see that pretty easily, as if now we're using the same exact image on both sides of the coin. There you go. And then that's going to create a nice clean roto as well as key for our dogfight image here. Now we can go in and clean a lot more things inside of this. I'm thinking for right now, I'm actually curious. I kind of like these reflective stuff up in the sky. So I don't know, not sky, but the glass kind of like overarching hang on this thing. So I'm probably going to keep that in there. We could remove them also just using a roto node. But I think for us right now, we'll probably keep that in and go from there. I just realized she's looking at the camera at the very beginning of the shot. That is breaking the fourth wall right there. Put a space whale outside like they did in Ahsoka. We could. The problem is I'm limited on time for the amount of things that we can add into this because I'm not doing CG creation on these streams. I basically only do compositing. So whatever I can grab off the Action VFX website, that's what I can add in. Okay, so this will conclude the rotoing out and cleaning up the alpha of our image here. We can actually do some more of the compositing aspects of the stuff. So talking about adding in space, let's go ahead and over to our Action VFX website and grab in some different elements. I'm thinking I want some space stars in the background. So let me just download the 2Ks of this. And these are just images, so we can actually drop them into our scene and then create whatever we need inside of there. So I'm going to drop this into our projects, live stream, streams, and then find ourselves a new folder, VFX material. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the stars in there. I'm thinking for sci-fi planets. Let's go grab these guys. Let's download this collection. I'll just need the 2K PNGs. They're totally fine. You would want OpenEXRs if you were doing kind of like an HDR workflow and you needed that inside of your scene. But since we're just doing YouTube effects right now, we don't have to necessarily worry about that. Yeah, should be good. So I just downloaded both those here to our VFX materials folder. So let's start out with the stars. Let's go ahead and unzip those and then see what we're getting. Should get all of these wonderful stars. I'm going to find an image that really works for us. So those are all pretty... I think I like how subtle these are. Let's use them. Let's drop this star in here. And these stars are pretty small. So we're going to add in a transform here. We'll change this from matte painting to probably 709. Yeah, there we go. And those are a little bit brighter now. Then if we take this transform, we can actually scale this up, right? And basically all we're going to be doing right now is that we're going to create a scene in which these stars are kind of being projected into our world. So I think there's a couple ways we could do that. I think since we're going to have her flying through space in 3D, and we might want to have different assets and maybe even a spaceship flying overhead and like all that stuff, it might be easiest for us to just build out an actual 3D scene. So if I take like a scene classic node here, and then I take a camera node, we'll take a camera classic as well, and we'll plug that into that section there. And then if we take a scanline renderer classic again, we don't need a BG on this. Instead, one thing that we desperately do need to do is we'll need to change. I hope this doesn't actually adjust anything over here. That's what I'm going to just double check for. We need to change our scene settings here to the size of our image. So that's going to be a 2K DCP. I should have done that from the very beginning, but I didn't. Okay, that didn't break anything. Awesome. Okay, so now if we go over to our scanline render, everything's in 2K DCP as well. And then, of course, we're going to plug this into our camera and our object scene. So what we're going to do right now is we're basically building a 3D environment in which we can drop different cards inside of the 3D environment. And then using our camera here, we can actually just animate it to move backwards through our scene in 3D. And if we do that, then booyah, we can add whatever elements we want in there, and we don't have to track anything. They're all living in like kind of like a 3D space, if you will. Have the USS Enterprise shooting plasma cannons at her. True, that's not a bad idea. If I had a quick 2D asset or something like that of a USS Enterprise, I'd be 100% down. But let's see. With our camera here, let's go ahead and keyframe the location of the camera. And I'm going to set a keyframe here as well. Oops, actually, I don't need that to be on frame 14. I need it to be on frame 1000. So let's just drag those over in our dope sheet. Great. So now that keyframe is set to there. And then, of course, now all we have to do is move our camera backwards in space. And I don't know how far we're going to necessarily want this to be. But let's just say that's about good. So now, throughout our entire sequence, everything is going to kind of be flying backwards. Now at some point she turns her wheel, so like about right here, and she starts to turn. So maybe if we go to our camera now, and then we're going to go ahead and set some keyframes, go back into 3D, and if we select our our camera rotation ability here. Let's go ahead and select our camera. It's going to start to rotate. And probably this way as well. Now, I need it to rotate around. It's just going to rotate sideways here. I'd like it to actually start to move the other direction. Let's see, let's set some keyframes here for the X, Y, and Z location. And then as this is rotating, I'd like the orientation to also adjust. Let's see. Probably something like that. And then now if I select our transform here, I'm going to basically try to we'll delete these keys here. The 3D camera functionality in Nuke is still somewhat of a mystery to me, but we'll figure it out, guys. The rotation here, though. Let's delete that keyframe there. There we go. And we can kind of see the camera path in which is going on here. Okay, cool. Probably rotate it a little bit more. Oopsies. Let's get to a better angle so that way we can see the camera a little bit better when we're rotating it. Cool thing is you can kind of see the path that we're animating here, so we can make sure that everything feels a little bit more organic. Nice. I think that camera movement there is going to work pretty good. She's making a very abrupt turn, so it doesn't have to feel super like, you know, buttery smooth. It's in the Discord. I'll check it out in a bit. I just need a... We just don't have much time on these streams, so I don't want to get distracted too much. Oh, I see what you're saying. You put the... Yeah, okay. I mean, I could do that. I could use that, but I feel like that would also look a little cheesy. Okay. Without further ado, let's get the space functionality in here, and then we could talk about adding in, you know, some different stuff like that. For right now, though, I want to drop in now a card, and if we take this card and we just have our, you know, image here, and we drag that into our scene, we can take this card and we can scale it up to whatever size we want, and we can also place it wherever we want as well. I'm probably going to place it back there. Our uniform scale, let's set this to like 50 or something like that. And then these are all of our stars that we have in our scene. So now if we play this back and we go view it through the camera here, we can kind of see what's going on. We're basically creating this, you know, kind of like background. And everything flies so freaking fast on how fast the stars move in the background. We might not want it to rotate quite as much, but let's see. We also will add in our motion blur and things like that, so I'm not too concerned about it. With our background here, let's take the size and scale that down slightly. Yeah, it's about the right size. And then, of course, at the bottom here, we're going to want more cards of stars in different areas. So just copy paste this, honestly. And we can rotate these cards inside of our 3D space and just move them where we need them. So I'm just going to move our 3D stars. We're basically creating a 3D sphere of stars pretty easily all by just grabbing in these cards and then placing them into our shot. And we shouldn't see that line at all. I think we should be fine. Probably going to create some more stars, so let's go ahead and grab this other card here, and we'll just keep moving these around. Let's drag this over into our scene, and you know, of course, if we double click on it, we can move it pretty simply. And it's okay if they're not like perfectly lined up, because they'll add a little bit of depth to the stars. Some stars are farther away than other stars, and so on and so forth. And we're just trying to fill in the gaps around here. I have some more stars over here. And again, we're just using the same image. We could feed it different images so that way, you know, it doesn't feel too copy pasty, but I don't even think that this is going to feel copy pasty. Again, we'll just kind of layer that in the background. And let's see, let's find, looks like we have everything now. So now if we play back our whole shot, we should be able to see our stars pretty easily. Okay, we are missing this section here. All good. Just grab some more stars and drag that into our scene. Pretty low maintenance, not very stressful, guys. I like that back there. Great. You know it. Use noise on a sphere for tiny stars. Yes, that could also work. And then that way you don't have to use this. The reason why I like doing this in 2D though, by the way, is if I wanted to add any kind of like adjustments to this layer here, it's pretty easy. Like all I have to do is Photoshop whatever I want into different planes. So, and I can use that as an example here, right? So, if I wanted to add in like a planet way back there, everything is 2D and I can make all of my adjustments pretty easily on 2D. And that way I don't have to go too crazy with it. Although a sphere totally works as well. I just wanted to use some of these assets that I have. Although, to be fair, I probably could have used these assets on a sphere as well. For our multi-sampling, I'm just going to set this up to like 10 or something like that. Let's do 2. Yeah, Nuke's 3D system could get some upgrades at some point, I hope. Although they did. I'm using the classic version, so this is not necessarily the best representation of what you can do inside of Nuke's system. Let's like use an exposure node here, and we can make these stars even brighter. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of a glow as well to them. We can change the tolerance to be a little bit higher, and then the brightness here as well. I'm going to change the size here to be a little bit smaller. So now we're going to get all of these stars. There we go. Now we're going to definitely see those light streakings or streaks happening as the motion blur is being used for the background. Yeah, I mean, I came from, so I love, oh, I see, Nate, you sent another one. That actually might work pretty nicely. There's something that flies over her head, so I'm down with adding something as long as it's a little bit more profile. If you find a profile of that, then send that my way, and I can use that in the comp. Okay. Another thing I want to do, and I'm going to show you an issue that we're having here, is that since we have parallax, you can kind of see a parallax square right here from a plane that is further away than the rest of the planes. So instead of us having that issue inside of our shot, what we could do is we could actually take all of these elements. Now here's the thing. Right now, this is just one plane and the alpha channel is set to full on everything. And inside of our scene, if we go look at our scene, it's all black planes and the black planes are kind of the background to our entire environment, instead of having every like little stars that are in kind of like a 3D space. So an easy way to do this, where we can have parallax of stars that are further away than the stars that are closer to you, which makes more sense when you're in space, then what we could do is we could add in a merge node up here. So we'll do that real quick. We'll add in a merge node, and then we'll just plug this mask into the top of this. And inside of our merge node, set this to the red value. And so now it's going to be looking at the red channel of our stars specifically. And I can just boost that real quick and you can see this. And it's creating an alpha channel of all of the stars that we have inside of our scene. And now all we have to do is then we plug that into our exposure, and then we plug that into the glow, and then we plug that back into our scanline renderer. And then now we get all of our stars. Now, the one thing you have to be concerned about is that we're going to lose quite a bit of our stars because they weren't bright enough for our image. So all we have to do to fix that is just boost the amount of the white point is on our stars, and then that will create the stars a little bit more visible inside of our scene. Great. So now let's take this first card here. I think we could take this first card and scale it down to something like 10, probably. And then now if we go ahead and play this back, all of the stars will feel like they are in 3D because they are, and then they won't be overlapping each other like planes. Instead, the stars will be overlapping each other, and some stars will be moving more than others, and that's all good. And then, of course, we might get sharp edges on how stars are forming. We can fix that through also our merge node. We can add in a roto of like a circle, and then that way we don't have this kind of sharp-edged line all the way around our entire image. So we could do that. Now this is crazy. Let's see. Versus this. We're going to try to find that happy medium of where it's at. Okay, and then this first card here, let's scale it up to like a 15, so that way we don't see the edge of it. And let's play that back again. And then the more samples we have, the cleaner that motion blur is going to look. I'm not too concerned about this because it's going to be out of focus and in the background of our space cruiser shot. So, at what angle are you going to need it? Sideways. Sideways. So you can actually count exactly how many samples something has. So in our scanline renderer here, I have 10 samples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's the same star right here over 10 different frames. And so, I mean, if we add like 100 in here, you'll notice that that streak turns into a nice line. So depending on how fast your motion blur is how many samples you're going to want inside of your shot. And unfortunately to us, everything moves so quickly that that creates a bit of a problem. So if I set that back down to 10, and of course the more samples you have, the longer the render is going to take. So we can actually change our shutter speed here to be something like, let's say, a 0.1, and then that's going to create smaller motion blur lines, and that might be more desirable for us because it's not as in your face like with the motion blur. And maybe we did film with a GoPro in space, right? And that's going to have less motion blur. If you're filming with like a GoPro that has a faster shutter speed on it, then you're going to have less of motion blur than if you were to shoot on, let's say, a cinema camera that has less smaller shutter speed and maybe it's a faster lens or something like that. You're going to have quite a bit more motion blur just inherently inside of the camera sensor. And that's all. This all has to do with what you're matching to real life motion blur, how much motion blur is in the rest of your image. For us, we don't really have a guide of what we could do, so you know, we can kind of choose whatever we want. I'm gonna go for the smaller motion blur because that's just gonna make it a little bit easier for us to line everything up. And let's just play this back and see, you know, roughly how this looks. Does feel a little jaggedy. And again, this is where like we could probably tweak things inside of our keyframes and then get the animation to really be perfect. As I said, I don't think this is going to be a one-day live stream. There's no way. There's way too much stuff I got to do today for that to happen. And then actually we can see how these stars are going to look once this finishes caching here. That could work. Yeah. I'll have to crop the feet. I mean, I'll have to remove the background, but that's totally fine. Okay, so this is going to be our stars background that we have here. And excuse how messy it is, but we're going to use this as our BG layer. So right now what we have is kind of like this alpha version of our main plate. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add an additional merge node here, and we're going to plug this in. So let's keep this as the alpha of our entire stack here, and then we're going to plug this into our stars. So I'm actually going to move this to the other side here. We're going to try to have some kind of semblance of organization as we're working on this, and then I'm going to, you know, just add in a nice dot. And now if I add this into our thing, we're going to have our stars in the background. So now let's go ahead and play back our shot with our stars and see how everything lines up. We can always adjust some of our keyframes if we have to. I love how everybody waits for me to live stream to text me. I've gotten like 10 text messages on my live stream so far. And it just seems like that's the way it is every single time. But as I said, keeping these reflections in here gives us like free detail. We're going to add in some more reflections, of course, into our sequence because I think it actually makes it look nicer the dirtier your window is. I don't think having a clean window is super ideal. It just looks too fake. It looks too composited. But we're just going to keep that in there for right. These reflections totally help us as a guide. I think actually if there is any movement on this, then we can actually track that. Sometimes you need to make the building fire with the motorcycle shot driving. Oh, yes, I got to do that as well. They've got so many good practice footage shots to really mess around with on their website. But hey, while we're waiting for this to cache, if you guys are new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And also we have a Discord. So if you guys are working on your own VFX shots, I'd love to see them. Post them inside of the work in progress section on the Discord. But also if they're like finished shots, go ahead and share them in the showcase section. If you guys have any questions, you can post that in the work in progress. Or I used to have a questions area. I don't remember if I removed it. I feel like I did because nobody ever used it. And I was like, oh, it doesn't. Oh, I do have a questions area. Although you could post them in the general chat. I don't think it really matters. I love the days because, you know, you're going to stream Nuke comp. You love the Tuesday live streams. Okay. Oh, yeah, this doesn't really work for us. We're going to have to make some adjustments here. Actually, I'm curious if we take our camera and we know that the movement that we have here to this point is totally fine. Let's grab these keyframes and move them all the way to the end. And let's just play it back like that, because she keeps turning. I'm not new here, but you continue to subscribe, boys, and be a Patreon. Yeah, join the Patreon. Link is in the description. Matthias was once part of the Patreon, and we currently have up another nice person up on the Patreon that is helping out the channel. So if you guys want to help join or support the channel, then please consider subscribing to the Patreon. And you guys get shout outs at the beginning of the live streams. And right now we have one awesome person who is a member of our Patreon. I believe it's Code for Art, or is the name of the person. And then, of course, you get a fancy tag on Discord with a bunch of other benefits. I mean, we have exclusive tutorials that go up on Patreon only. You guys get weekly uploads of early videos before they get posted to YouTube. And then, of course, we also get the shout outs at the beginning of the streams, as well as all the project files, by the way, for every stream that we do. That's the VFX streams as well as the CG streams. So if you guys want to use those assets for anything, you guys get all of those assets and you can mess around with them, download them, use them for whatever you want. And then yeah, of course, and then also you get to be an incredibly awesome person on the channel for helping support everything. Let's see how good this camera movement is here. So she's just like overall kind of like turning. I want to have more of a kind of like fade into it. Maybe like an ease in slightly to the keyframe. So that way it's not so jarring. Am I going to add a nebula? Maybe. I'm thinking we don't need it for this shot. Yeah, it's so jarring how it first starts out. So let's go to the very first keyframe here. And then we want this to kind of curve more into it. So I'm just going to find this keyframe in our sequence for our curve editor here. And then where our keyframes are at, let's make some adjustments. So this is the keyframe here in question, as well as this translation keyframe here. I think if we just go to this keyframe and then we start to just grab the front of this and then drag it out slightly, I think that does what we're asking it to. I'm going to just cache out these frames here. And then we'll play that back and just see how that looks. I think that works. I might add a little bit more. I will not be using Blender for this scene, no. I'm going to try to do this completely in comp. This keyframe here, I think if we go to I want to have a smooth keyframe. Then if I grab this and then move this maybe 2 frames, so that way I'm going to manually create kind of like this ease-in effect because I'm not quite sure how to do that otherwise. Yeah, I'll be adding in a planet. So use Blender on this scene, and then planet. Yeah, but if you're going to add a spaceships, no, I'm going to do that all in cards because we built this in 3D in Nuke. We can actually project all of our stuff using cards inside of this 3D scene here. And then I was potentially going to use this image that Nate sent over for Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. I like that movement there. Okay, great. So for our nodes now, let's go ahead and make some adjustments here. I think it would be cool to have like a planet in the corner over here. So let's go ahead and do that. Since we're using cards for literally everything right now, we can actually drop planets in wherever we want, as well as spaceships, as well as explosions, as well as everything, because all of that's happening inside of our comp here, and our Nuke comp here. And so all we have to do is go download those things. So I think I already downloaded some planets. So let's go find those. Let's unzip that. Build your own planet. I'm probably going to use some pre-built planets. We don't have time to build our own planet. We're out of time, guys. Add a star at the background. We are like a star destroyer, because we do have stars. Is this unzipping or not? The Nuke 3D window is super good. Yeah, I love it. Your node graph is way more organized. Well, it's still a bit way unorganized. It should be more organized. But thank you. I appreciate that. Just realized, actually, I've got this. Oh, that's that. Gotcha. Why is this frozen? I just want to extract my materials. Let's try that again. We're going to take this. We're going to unzip it. Extract. Then we've got this. Open it up. Pre-built. 7-zip. Extract. I'm running into some issues here with this extraction method. Is it because it's a zip within a zip? I'm wondering if that's what the issue is. Let's just download one of these, I think. A zip within a zip isn't zipping, man. It's just not working for me. And then we'll also want to add in some kind of like depth of field as well. Video Copilot. You guys realize there's like a minute delay, so when you guys just give like a one-word answer, it's very hard for me to follow along. Oh, man. Let's see. What did I just download? SOP? Son of a planet. That's what that means, guys. SOP means son of a planet. More zips and zips. Planet Earth. 7 solar systems. Let's find something from a different planet. Please just work. I think the zip in the zip is what's causing issues here. That's no bueno, guys. We could just download one, I suppose. That'll probably be the easiest solution for right now. Let's go ahead and just download this planet. I like this planet. This planet is exactly what... You're my home now. Mr. Planet, you are mine. And that is a fact. I'm going to need to tag it as the correct color space. There we go. And the roto probably could be a lot simpler than what I'm about to do. Let's see. Well, okay, we could just use some kind of merge node to do what we want here. I need this black to be gone, but I don't want to remove too much of the planet, and I'm lazy, so I didn't want to roto it, but it's fine. We'll just roto it. I'm not going to complain. Okay, we're not here to complain. We're just going to roto things. Roto is my favorite aspect of visual effects, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. There's so much fun stuff to do in Roto. There's a lot of clicking. and making sure that it looks clean, right? You should have planets if used in After Effects. Element 3D. I mean, hey, we don't need Element 3D. We've got a built-in Nuke compositor that has 3D system functionality in it. The only thing I don't like about the Nuke 3D system is it makes it very difficult to grab objects and rotate them. In Blender, the controls are pretty simple. Now, I will say this. I've been messing around a lot in Houdini lately, and it is just as bad as Nuke. So maybe other 3D softwares are all just inherently hard to control objects and stuff. Because in Blender, all I have to do is press G and I can move my object. And then if I want to move it on a specific axis, I could just press X, Y, or Z. If I want to rotate it, I do the same thing. I press R, and then I press, you know, X, Y, or Z if I want to rotate it on a specific axis. Otherwise, it rotates from the camera view. And it makes it just like really easy to grab things, move them around. Like, I don't know that I can do that in any other software. Not sure about that. Roto is not fun. What are you talking about? Roto's so fun, dude. I love to click. I love clicking, man. Do you not like to click? I'm joking. I don't like Roto. If I can avoid it at all costs, I do. All right, so now if we take this and then pre-multiply it and then set this to our mask functionality, we'll get ourselves a planet that we have here through our roto. And then all we have to do to fix it is maybe clean it up a little bit. But I think overall that should totally just work. Now we have ourselves a planet that we can use as a card. You're giving up on Houdini. I can't work with it. It's so complex. Yeah, well, but it's pretty nice. I like some of the things with inside of it, and you know, so I'm trying to get good at it, man. I'm trying to get good. I'm really trying to get good at it. It's just, it's hard, man. It's really hard. I'm gonna start crying. No, I'm not. But no, I think the hardest part of it is just the learning curve coming from Blender. I've talked about this before with like other 3D artists, and they use you know, they use Houdini and then they hate Blender. I think here's the thing, man. I'm just so used to a good software that going to a bad one sucks. Okay, I didn't say that. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's not a bad software. All right. It's just different, and it's hard to get used to that. So, all right. So here's our planet that we have here, and we're going to move this so that way we can see it a little bit, and it's gonna be closer than the rest of the stars. But yeah, just as a 2D card, we can just place this wherever we want. We're going to fly by a planet. Yeah, the After Effects, dude, After Effects 3D is terrible. It is, because it's not really 3D. Although, look at this, dude. I have to grab this and move it around, whereas it would be nice if I could just press a button and then rotate it, right? Like, wouldn't that be nice? Like, look how easy it is. Okay, I'm going to waste my time because I know that this is probably going to be a part 1, part 2. But I'm going to open up Blender and show you how easy it is to rotate anything. And I've had to explain this to so many other artists, and they're like, oh, no, it's way easier because I like to grab my gizmo. Okay, great. Want a gizmo? Here's your gizmo. You want your stupid gizmo, you can rotate it like that. If you want to be like Cinema 4D, or you want to be like Houdini, or you want to be like Maya, you use your stupid little gizmo thing here and then rotate it in whatever direction you want, all right? You can totally do that. That's totally fine. I don't like that gizmo. You know what I like? I like to just not have the gizmo. You know what I like to do, though? I like to press the button. R. Now it's rotating in accordance to my viewport. So wherever I am located, it rotates in that direction. You know why that's useful? I go to top view, I rotate it. I go to front view, I rotate it. I go to this view, I can rotate it. If I'm like this view, but I'm like, oh, I want to rotate it on my x-axis, I can rotate it on my x-axis. All I have to do is move my mouse around. That's it. This is all. You know how clean that is? Look how smooth it is too. Like, it's not janky. When I grab this over here and I move it, it's like all janky. Like, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, but this is the most and this is every 3D software. I've used them all, guys. I've used them all. All right. And every single one of them, they use this gizmo thing. And I try looking up, and maybe it's just I don't know where it is. And maybe you guys can tell me. I'd love it if you guys told me that there's a button for it. But I don't know what the button is to rotate objects in other 3D softwares. If I want to grab an object, I grab this, move it on the x-axis, grab it on that axis. I don't have to use the gizmo. I don't have to press E, W, R, S, whatever, what all those different ones are. But I can move this on whatever axis I want. I want to scale it. I just press S. Scale it on the x-axis. Scale it on the y-axis. You know how simple that is? I have my left hand here on the keyboard, and I just press those couple shortcuts, and it does exactly what I want it to. I don't have to go grab a gizmo or press a shortcut to get that gizmo up so that I can move my mouse over and grab it. That's just so convoluted. I don't understand. And then Houdini, to rotate around an object, I have to press space bar to do it. It's like, why? It's just rotation. And then in Unreal Engine, I have to use WASD and fly around the environment. Why? Why do we make things so complicated? I don't understand. And then when I tell other 3D artists, other professional 3D artists, I go, hey, Blender is so much less clunky. They go, no, it's not. It's way clunkier. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is so simple. This is so simple. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, guys. I could rant about this stuff forever, so I should probably shut up now because nobody cares. To me, it's just such a frustrating, aspect of everything. Whatever. Okay. Moving on. That's my rant. That was my soapbox there. I'm going to add a glow, but before we add the glow, we're just going to try to add in a bit of a atmosphere to these planets. What I can do is if you just add this glow in, we can actually remove some of the saturation here for our planet, and then we'll just remove some of the brightness as well. We're just going to add in some nice kind of like atmosphere to the edge of our world. Not too much. We're going to do two things. We're going to add in a bit of a glow, and then I also like to add in an edge blur. We can either use an edge blur or we can use a regular blur node. Probably be better if we just used a blur node, honestly. What we're going to do is if we go view this planet that we have here, and then we just blur everything outwards. I'm just going to do it like that, actually. Then if we take this and then merge this back on top of our regular planet, again, we're just going to make sure that auto alpha is enabled here. And then our blur, we're actually going to want to be in the background. So that way our main planet is in the foreground. We're creating kind of like a fake atmosphere to the rest of our image. The only problem is our blur scales everything up. So then we just need to take a transform node here. Since our planet isn't centered, we do need to find the center of our area. So this will probably be 651. And then 586. Space rant. That's why they call it a space opera. That's what, right? Like Star Wars is a space opera. And so now if I scale this down, we're going to get a atmosphere around our planet. And then, of course, that glow on top of everything is just going to kind of add in that little extra pizzazz that we can have. Before we do the glow, I just want to grab everything here and just move it down a little bit. And then our blur that's happening in the background for our atmosphere is pretty nice. I think that we need to blur between the two of these. So on our A input, the main hard-lined planet, what we're going to need to do is we need to blur that a little bit. Not too much. and this is going to go into our atmosphere. So what we're doing is we're kind of blurring like a tiny amount here, and then we have our big blur on the outside here, and that's creating the rest of our atmosphere. And we could change the color of our atmospheres now as well. This gives us like the ability to adjust this and make this whatever we want it to be. So if we want to have more of a blue planet atmosphere, then we could totally do that. Keep that B pipeline vertical. Hey man, I don't need no yeah, you're right. I'm just throwing this together, okay? Okay, so with that being said though, we'll clean this up and we'll do this in the B pipeline vertical location maneuvers, all right? So we'll put that on the A input, the transform will go up here, the blur will go here. So that way B is always coming from the very top. It is something I am trying to get better at, is doing the B pipeline, because man, I didn't learn that way, so I gotta get good at it. I also don't have to send my comps to anyone, so it's never a problem. But it is, I think, a smart maneuver to do. So yeah, there we go. B pipeline on top, guys. Oh, whoops. I still did that wrong here, didn't I? That's crazy. Booyah, guys. B's on the top. Is that a kissy face? Thank you. All right, great. So now we have our planet here and then on our card, and then we place that into our scene. Cool thing is as I was saying, since everything in our scene here is kind of like just 2D cards, we can make all of our adjustments. Most studios will enforce that way if you share your comps. True. That's the problem, is I don't ever share my comps. So, I mean, you're right, and you're not actually the first person to mention this on a live stream. So, you're right. I will try to endeavor to be better. Okay, so there we go. We'll now have our planet inside of our shot here, and that atmosphere just makes it look so much cleaner than what we had before, because like that's just what it was before, and then adding in that atmosphere, just super nice, guys. Super nice. Great. And now, with that being said, we can make some more adjustments here, right? So with our background that we have for our space scene here, we're going to want to defocus it because it is outside of our shuttlecraft, and we don't want everything to be in focus as much as our main character is here. Love that you're live streaming Nuke. Oh, thanks, man. I am enjoying it. I just, you know, there are aspects of live streaming that kind of suck, especially since I only have so much time, so I have to rush through things, and that never makes me happy. I don't like doing part 2s personally, because I don't think that people like them as much. And, you know, I also like to experiment with doing new things, and unfortunately that means not spending as much time as sometimes I'd like on this. I'm going to use bladed here for these the defocus here. If we add in this defocus after the scan line, what this does is it makes everything more bokeh because we're focusing on the front here. And we can tell that there's quite a bit of depth of field, especially since it's a dark scene. The darker your scenes are, generally speaking, the faster the lenses have to be. And then in that case, the more depth of field you're going to have because of how the ISO is set and how your shutter speed is set, and a number of factors that go into it. There's a lot of camera science behind it. So, you know, if you really want to do great VFX, I strongly recommend studying how cameras act, because that will influence how your composite will be. And one thing that we'll notice just specifically here is that we have quite a bit of depth of field even on the foreground of our elements, which means that the stars and everything that's in the background would be even more out of focus, and that's going to add more to the realism of what we're doing here. So now, of course, if we go to our planet shot, we'll be able to see that everything is even more out of focus than it was before. So let's go check that out. Let's see, she's turning her vehicle, and the planet should be out of focus, just like our stars are in the background. Now, one thing that we're going to want to do here is on our foreground element, we're going to want this light to cast more kind of like lighting on our foreground element. And I think that's really important to also add to the realism of our shots. So a couple things that we could do here is that on our A input over here for our main foreground element, we can take the background and we can just use a light wrap. This is actually a super easy way of doing this. I don't think that this looks the best. I think this is the cheapest and easiest option, but that doesn't always mean it's the best option, right? So we can just go on here and then change the intensity, and then what this does is it allows us to add in some more bleed. And then of course if we change our diffuse, that also kind of like adds in like this lighting effect that's going on here. And again, this is just an easy way of doing it. I think it's a nice easy pre-built way inside of Nuke to basically add in some free lighting effects onto your scene. I don't know that it's the best for our scene, and I'll explain why. It's really only taking the areas in which the foreground and the background are meeting, and it doesn't take everything. And this works really well if you already have your kind of glow happening throughout your entire scene. But we want to continue to build out the rest of our environment. For instance, this space, which there's going to be a lot of light pollution that's going to happen throughout our environment as well that we're going to want. So let's go ahead and remove this light wrap that we have. And if I just add in, let's just say a blur node, for instance, let's just take this real quick. And we don't want to blur that. We actually want to blur our Z defocused section of our image. And we also actually, before we do that, I'm going to take a merge node here and then let's subtract what we have from here. So here's our B input. And then instead of using our mask, I'm going to try to do it the proper way, which I keep getting yelled at to do. We're going to set this over here to mask. And then now we have just our planet with our mask. I'm going to invert our mask selection, right? Actually don't know how to do this technically speaking from... So we're not inverting the alpha. Normally I would just hit the invert here. I guess technically speaking, I can invert it here on our mask input. Yeah, that totally works. Okay, so now we have ourselves a mask input with our B at the very top here. I'm going to go ahead and hide this input. Essentially, we're just trying to clean this up. And then using this blur node here now, we can actually blur this as much as we want. I'm probably going to blur this about 300 or so, which just creates this like generically large light effect that we want to have. And then of course, if we take this merge node down here, and then on the A input, plug this into the blur, I'm going to take this whole thing, including this, and just move this down. You can get rid of the invert, use a stencil operation. Okay. Let's go try that out. Mask. Stencil. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. As I said before, I always use the mask option inside of a merge, and then I have a hanging B, and I've gotten criticized before on my live streams. Many ways to skin a cat. Yes, I've gotten criticized on my live streams for doing this incorrectly. So I'm trying to do it more correctly now, using the mask option instead of not using the mask option, because normally I just plug the mask in and then have the A plugged into whatever the object is, and then the B is just hanging there. But I've gotten yelled at about that, so and that's a fair criticism, so I am trying to be better. Okay, so now if we take this blur, you'll notice that it kind of is just over top of everything. I'm going to just plus this now. And this is going to add this on top of everything, and it kind of adds like this nice glow element to everything. And now I can just remove the amount of it by just that functionality right there. And that's going to add in more glow to our sky back here, as well as to our foreground element. So that way it kind of just like blends everything together. I think that looks a lot better. I'm going to actually add our grain all the way down there. Another thing that I would like to do is, if only, I don't think we have it. Let's go find this asset real quick. If we go to their practice footage library, I don't think they have, I do not believe that they have any lens charts for the lenses that they used. No, they don't. That's unfortunate. It would be nice to basically unwrap everything here before we reapply a lens distortion. Don't sweat it. Ultimately, as long as the final comp looks good, no one cares. That's probably fair. I've seen senior compers in studios with horrible scripts management. Looks like a plate of spaghetti noodles. Yeah, that's what some of mine, not really. Actually, I always try to have some semblance of organization. I think I always start out by just node vomiting, as I like to say, where I throw all my nodes out and I don't do it very cleanly. That's how I probably normally work. But then before I hit the render button, I always clean things up. So I like first throw everything out and then I clean it up as I'm going. And that usually helps me. I don't normally create things clean out the get-go, but here I am. I'm trying to do it. All right. Whoops. We're going to throw this. This right here is the thing that's getting disorganized, okay? I think if we press L, that's going to sort that out a little bit for us. Sweet. Yeah, I'll press L again. Why is that throwing this one up there? Cool. And then here's our planet. So here's our stars, and then we have our planets that we use. Your personal creative processes. Yeah, you're right. I think it is a personal thing that a lot of people have to kind of mostly figure out on their own. But, I mean, I don't know. Okay, so before our Z defocus here, one thing I did kind of want to do is add in a bit of lens distortion. And this is where we're going to cheat it a little bit. Since we don't know what the distortion should be, you don't want to go too high, but I do find that adding a little bit of distortion into CG shots allows you to have kind of a little bit more realistic effect on everything. Because in the world of CG, everything is just straight lines. Everything is just so goddamn straight. But in real life, lenses capture things and they add in a little bit of lens distortion. So the more that we add here, the more distortion we're going to get. And I'm going to add in probably just like a 0.04 onto this. And if we do the same for here as well, what this is going to do is this is going to add in a little bit of distortion to the edges of our image, which is going to be really nice for when the stars are coming away. It's going to feel a little more 3D. It's going to feel less like a camera, like digital zoom, and more 3D in nature. And then, of course, that's going to be before our Z defocus that we do. And then, of course, before everything gets comped back in. But now if we go ahead and play back our shot, let's just see what that looks like. And of course, we're going to do some more like frosting, and then we're going to add some reflections into the top of our image here. But the one thing that you'll notice is that the stars are going to feel more like they're kind of like warping slightly as they're coming into from the edges of the screen. And that's going to be more realistic to how, actual cameras would capture it. The more distortion you have, usually the shallower depth of field your lens is. So the longer your lens is, the less distortion you're going to have. So let's say you have, 100mm lens, then you're going to have quite a bit less distortion than, let's say, an 8mm lens, where you're going to have like this crazy amount of distortion. So GoPro shots are like crazy fisheye. I know that's a different technical effect that basically a lens is having, but a nice way of being able to compositely fix that is by your camera crew going and filming lens distortion charts, which I got to admit, the amount of productions that I've worked on, okay, I've only on two jobs actually received lens distortion charts properly. Every single other time, it's not been done correctly. And it's primarily because I work on lower budget stuff, so they don't really know what they're trying to do. But it is remarkable how often people send you like a camera test footage, which is just their slate. It's not their actual lens distortion chart. And they go, hey, use this for your lens distortion chart. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. But, thank you. Okay. Let's see if we can get this to cache back and play before we move on to adding in some reflections. I think the next thing that we're going to need to do is add in some reflections, as well as I want to add in some kind of like dirt and grime to the edges of the windows here. I don't have an easy way of doing this. And Cordell, well, by the way, welcome Cordell into the chat. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. You seem to know a bit about Nuke. I have a question for you. There is something that I've been wanting inside of Nuke, and I don't know if it exists in some kind of plugin already, or if it exists inside of Nuke. I haven't been able to find it. I have talked to the people from Foundry, and they have told me that they don't have it as a feature, but maybe I didn't ask the right question. I'm not quite sure. One thing I kind of want to do is I want to have as a paintbrush option. I want to be able to paint inside of Nuke with different brushes. Right now, the default brush is just like a circle, and you can control the amount of hardness on the edge of the brush. And in every other software that I ever try to use, of course, you use Substance Painter or Photoshop or something like that, you can change the brushes by importing a black and white photo. And that's basically an alpha or non-alpha version of the brush. I don't know how to do that inside of Nuke, and it would be amazing if they had that as a feature, but I don't actually think that's a thing that you can do. And I don't know if there is already a tool out there. I started to code my own inside of Nuke. It's not done yet. I have a bit more to go, but I was, of course it's going to be limited functionality because I'm the one coding it. I would love it if there is like a legitimate professional way to do this where I can just say, hey, here's all my brushes and I want to, import new brushes or whatever. And then I can paint. And all I want to do is paint with different brush types, but I don't think, and I went through Nukepedia. Nukepedia I really dislike. Nukepedia has all of the add-ons or gizmos and things like that, but not an easy way of searching, because when you go to the search bar and you type in something, it doesn't really pop up with all of the gizmos. It does like a weird result, and that is something that I'm trying to solve. But anyways, if you do have anything on that, then let me know. And of course, anybody else watching, if you guys know anything, let me know as well. Okay. Overall, this is pretty good. I like the movement. I like how everything is kind of flowing here as she's flying overhead. Yeah, as far as you know, there's no way to do that with the root paint node. Technically you could add your brush presets to the roto paint stroke, but it would be pretty heavy. Yeah, I know that you can see the roto paint node is exactly what I'm talking about. So if I add in a roto paint node, I'm not sure. So the shape is probably what you're referring to. So that's rounded. I'm just curious because like I almost wish that when I go over here to paint, that there would be a drop-down list at the very top up here of previously created roto paint brushes, and I could import a new shape and use that here, and it wouldn't necessarily allow me to change it later. I don't really give a crap about that. I mostly just want the shape of this to be changed, and I don't know how to do that. And I was trying to see if there was a way to do it. I couldn't find anything online, of course. And Is what it is. All right, let's add some reflections into our sequence here. I think that one thing we could do is if we take our alpha here and then we just invert it and flop it, we could probably create a pretty interesting reflection onto the ceiling here using some grid warping as well. So let's try that. I'm going to take a transform node and let's just scale invert this on our y-axis. So on our height here, let's do a negative 0.2 maybe. Let's go view that real quick. Yeah, our 0.3 probably should be fine. And that's going to be our reflection. And then now after that, let's add in a grid warp. And just grabbing this center piece here, all we have to do is just move that upwards. It's hard to tell you exactly how much we need to move it up, but just about that much probably. And then of course, the rest of the reflection. You totally get what I'm suggesting. Yeah, and again, I did talk to the guys from Foundry about it. I don't know if that's on their high priority list because everybody just takes it out to Photoshop instead, and it's like I don't want to have to go to Photoshop. Sometimes I work in a smaller studio, so I work in like a boutique, and I don't have time sometimes to do stuff like that. Whereas I wish I did have as much time as some of these people in these larger studios. I just don't. So I have to try to get as much done as fast as possible. And sometimes that does mean sacrificing going to separate softwares for pipeline issues. Also, I don't like going to Photoshop because Photoshop sucks. They don't have proper color management. It just makes everything super annoying. In After Effects, I hate that masks pop in before the frame updates. It makes the roto so much harder to A/B going from one to the next. Masks shouldn't load until the frame loads to be in sync. Interesting. I haven't had that issue before. Okay, I'm going to take this and then we're going to comp this on top of everything here. So if I just go look at that now, you'll see our reflection kind of going wackadoodle up there. We can also adjust some of our reflective areas in which the reflection is refracting. So let's do that real quick. And it's okay if this isn't perfect. I mean, ideally we want it to look pretty nice, but it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just creating reflections that we're barely going to see. Perfect. Perfecto is what I think that should work nicely. Now, all we need to do is get rid of half of everything here. So I'm just going to add in a contrast node here, and we're just going to make it really poppy so that way we're only getting the highlights of our entire image, not any of the dark areas. And so then now if we go back to our reflection that we have, and then we just scale that down, honestly, we're just going to already get exactly what we want. But I'm going to use this as like a screen operator. And so this is going to screen everything in over top of everything. And then if I just blur it slightly, not too much, but just slightly. And then now we go ahead and remove quite a bit of it. We just now have all these reflections that we're adding in. I also want to add in another merge node here. And let's see. Let's add the merge node in like this. And then our roto node. And then, yeah, let's clean this up a little bit. So, boop, boop, boop. We're just going to remove some of the reflections that we don't want to see. So, RGBA, invert that. Set this to... Oh, that's right. You said to stencil it. Add the stencil in, and then remove the invert. Not to backseat oh, wait. Spline warp is a bit cheaper on your CPU and RAM. Oh, okay. I'll have to mess around with that. I'm running out of time for this stream, but we're probably going to have to come back on a lot of this stuff anyways. There we go. Okay, there's all of our reflections, and then we comp that in. Now we only want that over top of everything. We don't want it everywhere else in the image. So let's just really quickly here. By the way, I don't mind backseat comping because the idea of these streams is to help teach people how to do stuff. And if I'm doing it incorrectly, then it's always great to have someone help me out. In this case, you'd mask, element, B pipeline, and then roto the pipe. Sorry, there's some delay. I know. Yeah, there's like a minute delay or something like that. And then also, whenever I check the chat is the other delay that there is. Okay, now, I mean, the only other thing I really want to do here is before this pipeline comes all the way down here, would like to add in some frosted window effect. You'll rewatch The Small Soldier last night. The rendering doesn't hold up for the CGI toys, which is about 50% of the time you see them. But the compositing is incredible in that movie. I actually haven't seen it. Okay, so we have our alpha here of everything that's going on. I think one thing we could do is if we add in a this is all that. Okay, that's fine. I want to add in a roto paint node, and then if we take this and then merge this, gosh, that's always annoying. And then if we merge this, that's on the B, and then actually I have to move everything again. Where this guy is then receiving a paint. Let's see. Yeah, that'll work. So I need to change my opacity here to like a 0.01. And then we're just going to add in some frosted windows. I'm going to just try to paint something in here. And then, let's see, 0.01 is fine. Okay. Now, this guy, let's go ahead and just use a frame hold, probably. So that's going to comp everything in over top of that. Maybe even add in a grade node. That way I don't have to adjust the colors. I could just use it through a grade. And then, of course, let's see. I think, honestly, I'll just add in a merge node. I know this isn't as proper, but I'm going to just do this to control the amount of alpha that we have on everything. Actually, it might actually be better if I just do that directly on this roto paint, because this is the... Oh, let's find it down here. This guy right here, if I select him and then go to roto paint, I can adjust the opacity directly on him. I just need to find, yeah, the second piece here. We'll just adjust the opacity on this guy as well. Great. So now, at the bottom of our stack, kind of just have everything over top of everything. Oh, you're right. I could just do it in the grade node. Yeah, you're right. Fair point. Fair point. Just using the gain inside of the grade node. That is totally a valid point. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I was literally using a grade node for something else. You're totally right. All right, let's play this back. That's hilarious. I was just going to use a merge node and then just change the alpha of it slightly. But I was like, I know I'm trying to avoid having the hanging bee. How else would I go about that if I actually wanted to have transparency and I didn't just bring the gain down? How would I go about doing that? I imagine I probably could do it through some kind of mask operator, right? Oh, and then I do... Oh, man, this sucks. Yeah, we're going to do a part 2 on this because... Oh, it's good? Okay, I didn't know. I'm just learning about the B pipeline maneuver and things like that. And, yeah, you use a multiply node. Oh, you're right. I could use a multiply node. I think we're going to add in... So if we do a part 2 on this, I have to add in the ship flying overhead. Might fix some of the camera movement tweaking. And then I would add in a holographic display in the front here. Although I don't want it to get too busy. Yeah, I don't think I want to get it too busy. We'll probably call this for this stream. We might do a part 2. No promises. I think there are tweaks that can be made to this. I don't know that it would get like a whole new stream. I don't think that really helps. Let's just get this to play back, honestly, and then we'll take a look at this. Then we can tell. Then we can say that it was a good stream or not, because we don't know if it's a good stream yet. Right? We don't know until it's done, man. We don't know. It's hard to get this all crammed in just an hour or an hour and a half, 2 hours. I do love how the reflections play up against the wall here. I think that looks really nice. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of the planet that comes in because it almost looks incorrect because of how we don't see it before. I almost want to see the planet when she's first flying away. I think that would make more sense to have the planet on the beginning of the shot than here in the second part of the shot. Although I don't know. I think that's something that we could tweak. It's more of like it's also a story related question, you know, when like for our particular shot, I don't think that having the planet pop in here at the end, it's more jarring that it just randomly pops up. Oh, cash. Come on. Is there an A pipeline? No, we only do B things around here, all right? You never plan to do the A, you always plan to do the B. No, I think B pipeline is just pretty industry standard for compositing artists, from my understanding, is that, you know, it's just an easy way for everybody to always track where things are coming from. Honestly, that frost that we added in here just adds so much to the shot. Oh, man, I love that. This looks good, guys. I think I'm happy with how this turned out. Those reflections look good. I love the frost that we added in there. 1 hour to make the best VFX. Yeah, that's what we try to do. I don't know about the best, but hey, we're doing something around here. Hey, if you guys are new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Really appreciate it. I will be posting these project files up on the Patreon. And then if you guys want to buy the assets, then you guys can go get those from the Action VFX link that is in the description below. This was a fun one. I actually really happy with how this turned out. It's not playing back at full speed because my computer is going when it's trying to do this and stream at the same time. But this was a fun one. B for the background, for the layer, yeah, and then the background. So there's always but that just changes. Totally true, and that's how it works. So it's like you basically have your background and then your your A top of your maneuvers, or your thingies, and then you basically move it all the way down the pipeline. So that way everything looks good. Oh, thank you so much for subscribing, Cordell, and thank you everybody else who joined the stream today. This was a fun one. Yes, Hasselhoff does know. Hasselhoff is the guy that tells me everything that I'm doing and how the proper way to do it. But now, Cordell, you are joining the League of Champions of telling me the proper way to do things around here. And I appreciate that because it's making me a better artist. And I have a lot of fun doing this. But yeah, I think this turned out good. I'll render this out, drop this up on the Discord for you guys to check out. If you guys aren't part of the Discord, link to that is in the description below as well. And that way you guys can join the fun and share your own work. I'd love to see a lot of your guys' own work that you guys create, your own visual effects shots and your own renders and CG stuff that you guys do. It's always great to see that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining, and I'll see you guys in the next one when we, I think we're doing a CG render this coming weekend, this coming Sunday. So if you guys want to see creating a 3D shot from scratch, then we will be live this coming Sunday to create a new shot there. And then next Tuesday, we'll do another visual effect shot. So one at a time, guys. We do these things one at a time. But all right, peace out. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.